Going back into the main Active Directory product, you'd have your normal users and groups OUs. So from a student, to get the user to exist in Google, all we'd be populating is the mail address. That mail address will then sync using the Google Cloud Sync tools and populate an account up in your Google domain. Regular users of the Google Admin Control Panel will recognize this one. There's nothing different. All I'm going to do is use our admin domain to show you around some of what happens. All the users that we're going to look at today have actually been populated into Google using our direct into Google product rather than using Google Cloud Sync. As Google Cloud Sync is just a setup and run application, there's little point in us demonstrating that today. So what we can do is we actually use our own product to write the users directly. And we can also write the users directly into organizational units as well. And those organizational units don't have to exist. We can create them directly. And then all the users will exist. So here you'll see all I've set to populate into Google is the Green Abbey domain, the Green Abbey section of this local Active Directory. And all the users then exist. When it comes to the groups, the same is largely true. Again, we can create the groups directly in Active Directory, and then those will sync with your Google domain if we set the mail address. Although alternatively, if you set up your Google Cloud Sync tool to use an attribute other than mail, then we can obviously populate those attributes instead, and you can then sync the users or groups. When it comes to additional services with Google, the class groups really become quite handy. You can use the classroom groups in your local Active Directory, and we can add the teacher directly into those, so that if you don't want us to manage your classrooms directly, for example, if you're already using Classroom and you just want us to maintain the groups so that your teachers can create the classrooms themselves, then we can add the teacher into the class group. Just had a question coming about, if we create the users directly in Google, how do we manage password sync? We don't actually manage the password sync for you. You'd need to install the Google Cloud Password Sync tool. That would be the one issue that you'd have by us managing the users directly in Google, is you'd have no way of the passwords being synced together. Now, normally we'd create the users in your Google domain with exactly the same username as they'd have in your local Active Directory. At least then you'd be able to use the password sync tool. So from a user perspective, looking around Google, so this is from a teacher's perspective. So the mailbox obviously is a normal Google mailbox. All we've done here is make sure that the mail attributes exist so that the user actually gets a mailbox. And like we do with Exchange and Office 365, is we can also populate the calendar with the user's timetable. So here's the timetable for today, in fact for the whole week for this member of staff. And we can see that the lesson names are shown as the subject, and we've also populated the room locations as well. And while we're here, we'll jump across into the student perspective. And again, we'll see that the student mail is exactly the same. It's just a normal Google mailbox. And we've again populated the calendar directly from your MIS. For students, what we generally do with the calendar is, rather than put the lesson name, we usually populate the subject, because it's more appropriate to the pupil. They generally don't know or aren't really interested in which particular science class they're in. They just know they're doing science. So we populate the science class information, and then also the location. I was mentioning about Google Classroom a couple of minutes ago, and occasions where if you're already using Google Classroom as a teaching and learning tool, then you may not want Salamander to directly take over management of that at the moment, although we can do. What we do with Classroom is we actually populate them using the academic year. So we prefix every single class with the academic year. So in this case, the class is 2016, and it's a Year 7 English class. I've only created one classroom here for for this purpose of this demo. But when you log in as a student, as we are here, you'd have tiles for every single class that you're part of. And for a teacher, the same is true. The benefit of using the academic year on the front is obviously you'd at a glance know which are this year's classes and which are last year's classes. As we don't remove previous year's classes, it is possible to archive them. However, we're not doing that at the moment, and usually you'd want to archive these in bulk at the end of the year. It also means the teacher, you can step back into previous academic year classes, and also as a pupil you can do the same. Those classes are likely to contain information that you want to use in future years, so having them accessible to you still is quite handy. It also means that we get around the problem of the same class name existing in multiple academic years. For example, this 7CEN1 exists this year, and it probably will exist next year as well, just a different group of students in it. This way, it means you can maintain the groups of students and the teacher in different academic years. Doing this also means that if we create your classrooms now and you're already using Salamander Active Directory, if you're already using Google Classroom, your existing classrooms are going to be unaffected. They will stay there, and Salamander will just create new classrooms on top of the additional ones, on top of the ones you already have. So let's jump into a class from a pupil perspective. And it loads up, and you get a stream. So you'll see all the conversations and assignment areas that you have set for you, and also any documents. You also get a handy tip that this assignment is overdue. Now, this demo was originally created for BET 2017, so a lot of the actual assignments are from that time, which is why they're all showing late. But then you can go to the open for it, and you can see you can add some private comments, you can add files that you've created, or you can create a file directly, which obviously fire up the Google Apps, various applications, and enable you to save the work directly. You can also add a comment that is visible by the whole class. While we're in the mailbox, you'll also have noticed that actually the pupil gets notifications of any new classroom assignments created for them. So we'll just jump into one of those and have a quick look as we're looking at newspaper and politics. So there's a notification that your teacher created a new assignment and which class it was created in, and you can open the assignment directly. From a teacher's perspective, the interface is largely the same. Again, we see the class as a tile, and we see how many students are in it. But as a teacher, we can also archive the class. We can also open the Google Drive folder, which contains all the assignment information for the class. As you'll notice, there's no documents in here at the moment, but this is how you'd be able to access documents that were assigned to the whole class. Any work that's completed by students will also then appear through here. So what we'll do is we'll quickly create an assignment, and we should see that an assignment gets sent out. By default, no due date is selected, so you choose one if you want to, and you can also set it to have an exact time. So we'll set that for the 3rd of March. And it by default will go to midnight, but there's no reason why you can't change those. Add any instructions, and you can also add documents linked directly into various other Google services such as YouTube. And it'll then create the assignment for the students. Once you're in the Google assignment, you get the opportunity to grade students once they've completed work, and it's just a simple tick box routine. You can add the grade as plain text. When it comes to Google Drive, we can also populate and create Google Drives directly usually based on classes these would be, but there are various options around using Google Drive. We're also following the Google Team Drive developments, which is still in beta, and we're expecting to add these into the Salamander product shortly. With the calendar entries, what we can also do with the actual entry for the class itself, there's no reason why, as well as the normal descriptive text that we add, usually which MIS system it's been generated from, it'd be possible to add the Google Classroom link directly into these. And we've done this for a number of customers, which just makes it that little bit easier to hop between the various Google Suite services. As well as the normal timetable calendars, depending on your MIS, we can, for teachers, we can pull out the cover timetable. If you're using Sims, we can also pull out the main Sims School Diary and populate that. And these don't necessarily need to be into the default user's calendar. They could be into a separate sub-calendar named School Diary or named anything else that is appropriate. For Sims, we can also pull out the exam diary for pupils and populate that into a separate calendar. What we've done for a number of customers with the Google Calendars, because of the way that they're shared, we often prefix these with the staff code so that you can enable sharing between different users. It is now also possible for us to create room resource mailboxes in Google and use these to store the timetable information for a room. So far, I've only seen one question come through on the conversation view at the moment. If there are any questions, please feel free to throw them through, and we'll do our best to answer them as we go along. Failing that, we're coming towards the end of the actual main webinar itself. As a quick whistle-stop tour of some of the functionality in Google Suite that Salamander can assist with provisioning. And if you are interested in adding any of this functionality to your existing Salamander installation, then all you'd need to do is drop an email to support@salamandersoft.co.uk, and one of the team will be able to add this for you. I'm just seeing that there are a couple of people seem to be typing questions at the moment, so I'll just wait for those to come through. Okay, so a question from Amit. Can you show multiple teachers on classroom classes for the MIS system? I think that's meaning if you have multiple teachers of the same class in your MIS, so say this 7DG class that we've got at the moment, the geography class, if they had more than one teacher, would we be able to handle those? Absolutely yes. So in that circumstance, both teachers would be added to the classroom. So if we look at the header bar at the top, we can see one, we've got an administrator user that's created for the year group. So that exactly a head of year could access the classroom. Then we've got the teacher. We've also got our administration. That shows the teachers of the class, if you like. Any additional teachers would be shown here. Now, if they're not in the MIS system, so say this is a teaching assistant that's not linked to the class, it's still possible for us to manage these. We've got a couple of methods of doing it. One of them is that we use a CSV file located on your system, and all that has in it is the name of the class and then a comma-separated list of email addresses of the additional people that need adding to that class. Another question just come in. How would we recommend allowing access to cover teachers to all classrooms? Yes, I think that's a similar question to the one I was just answering, really. So if you've got some users that you want to be in lots of the classrooms. Now, there is a problem with group membership maximums in Google, because the underlying technology behind the Google Classrooms is actually groups, and you can only be a member of 2,000 groups maximum. Now, that's not going to be a problem usually in a single academic year, but very quickly over multiple academic years, you're going to find that you've got too many people, you've got too many groups that you're a member of, which is why we use this single user for each year group and academic year to maintain and manage the classes in that year group. So this is the 2016 academic year. This is a year 7 class. So we've got an admin for 2016 year 7. Likewise, there'll be one for 2016 year 8, year 9, and so on. There's no reason why you couldn't have a cover year 7 2016, cover year 7, cover year 8 2016, etc. And Salamander could create those users and maintain them for you, and also make sure that they're in every single classroom. Another question, is the exam timetable calendar personalised? Does it take into account specific exam entries and class schedules and rooms? The answer to that is yes. Now, in the case of SIMS, which is the most common MIS system here in the UK, in the case of that MIS system, the exam timetable is per student. We retrieve the timetable as it is set per student, and then is populated into their own calendars. So each user has their own exam calendar timetable object in their own mailbox. So yes, it'll only have their own entries that are entered for. So example, if they were taking GCSE English and another student was taking GCSE Maths, they would only see the GCSE exam for which they were doing, and it can include information such as their seat number, the location, and so on. Another query is just going, if we have an existing Google Classroom sync and from a previous company, could we take over the sync without things breaking? So this goes to the naming of the classrooms. Now, normally, as I said, what we do with our classroom naming is we prefix them with the academic year. So any that we create for you would have that format. So if the ones that you have now don't have that format, then the ones you have now would remain unaffected. We wouldn't be touching them. It could be possible for us to maintain those existing ones, but we'd need to look at how they're administered. So what the owner of each classroom is, because you'd need to be an owner to be able, or an owner or a teacher in that class to be able to manage the membership of it. I can see we've maybe got a couple more questions coming through, so I'll hang on for a moment while we look for those. So while I'm waiting to see if a couple more questions come through, I'll go through a couple of other areas of the Google Classroom in a little bit more detail. So as you can see the student list directly. We showed the teachers of the group show at the top of the screen on every single area, and there's the list of pupils. And also you can send a direct email to those pupils directly from the interface without having to drop out to your Google mailbox. You can do it from here. You can also change whether or not students can post a comment. On the About tab, you see generic information. This is where you can also see who are the teachers of the classroom. And you can change basic information. So when we create the class by default, we'd just use a default welcome message, and that can be changed by the teachers anytime to make it a bit more personal. You've also got links directly to the classroom calendar. So any entries where you create the assignment will populate the pupil's calendar, and you can view those entries from here, either in the classroom interface or in the native Google Calendar interface. You can also add generic entries to the classroom that aren't related to any specific assignment. So say you had a scheme of work that you wanted all your pupils to be able to see, you could add it directly here. Just had a query come through. Could the calendar link to Office 365? I think what you're meaning here is if you're using Office 365 and Google, as a number of customers are doing. So you're using Office 365 for your email and everything else, but you're using Google Classroom for the classroom interface, the assignment side of things. Yes, we can add the Google Classroom links into an Exchange Office 365 calendar. Queries comes through. We're happy with the way that Salamander interfaces our G Suite domain. That's always nice to hear. But we're interested to hear what other new features will be available in the near future. Are we aware of any of these and how Salamander will support use of them? So the biggest new forthcoming feature in Google is the Team Drive functionality. So that is in beta at the moment, and we do have beta support for it. So if you are interested in adding that functionality, then please do get in touch with us. We do also have support for Google Drive as well. Like I said, the normal Google Drive, not Google Team Drive. We also support Google Cloud Print. So if you're using your printers on site, you've linked them up into Google Cloud Print interface, then we can assign those printers directly to students, which may be a use for things like Chromebooks and so on. Other functionality which has been added into Google recently is the Guardians facility. So the ability for parents to be able to access at a glance information about their pupils' assignments in their various Google classrooms. So this uses the parental contact information in the MIS, and we do have support for this. What it does is it will email an invitation to the email address that comes from the MIS for the parent, and the parent has to accept that invitation in order to receive notifications about assignments, and they get an overview of what's happening for their pupils, their children, sorry. Any new functionality that we're adding into the Salamander products is always published to our blog, and we also use Twitter to signpost these. Okay, that brings to an end the main functionality of Google that I wanted to show you today and explain how Salamander can interface with those. If you do have any questions, like I said, I am going to stay on the webinar for about the next 10-15 minutes. Failing that, you can always contact us via support@salamandersoft.co.uk or info@salamandersoft.co.uk, and one of the team will be able to get back to you. As I said, this webinar has been recorded, and we hope to make it available on our YouTube channel over the next couple of days. Failing that, thank you very much for your time, everybody, and I hope to speak to you all soon.